Shalom, salama, siemi, shalom. Greetings, my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world. Whether you are of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the house of Israel, or you are a Gentile that's grafted in under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. And so, yes, family, I'm running a little late and later. I actually had a different message today. Because it was something that was going to go over a dream. I may have to, it was a dream of mine. I'll probably have to revisit that here later on this week. Because then something else had happened to me this morning, and that had me very dismayed. And you know, I was in my flesh, and I had to realize that ultimately it's the Most High that's in control. And I really didn't do too much in terms of advertising this because this was very impromptu for the most part. You know, I like to try to get things up on social media and everything else. It doesn't make it easy. There's no connections with like Hebrew Sphere or Hebrews Connect or, you know, Facebook. Facebook will have something. Twitter, no, not really. And Instagram on my little Mac isn't really working it doesn't really work too well. So I'm getting all that going on. But before I go on in, shalom to Brother G, Gabriel Aluya, Marcon Marvel, Mr. D, Original School, Donna Hall, Angie Love Yah, Equinox Walker, Donna W, Second Exodus, Stephanie McMillan, Rio Morgan, Shalom Brother, Humphrey Abogi, Aerospike, Kenneth Wilkinson, Isabella Maya, Truth Hurts, Abbott Cole, Coco G, B1 Queensland, Priscilla Sharp, KD, Shauna Swainson, Shauna Leonard, Jimmy Lum, Ninja Firewolf, Cornell Brown, and Yakanan Bell. Yeah, so I woke up this morning and said, "Oh man, I got a message. I had a dream, and that dream was interesting how that dream had gone." Josie Arad ER Yasharala, T Spencer, and 300 S&B Shalom. And so it was different. The dream was definitely very weird, because I'm just going to tell you how this dream kind of unfolded. So I'm kind of in this, it feels like I'm back at Fort Bragg, and I'm kind of out processing, and I'm there with my spouse, and we're actually sitting down getting things taken care of. And it seems like we're kind of like in like an office building. And at this time, you know, I have like a lot of folks that are kind of staring at her and staring at me. And the ones that staring are in uniforms. They don't have their you know, blouses on. It's just their shirts, you know, and they're white folks. They're not black, and they're just kind of staring at her. And then like as I'm sitting down, you know, it's like we're getting ready to sign some important documents. And, you know, we're kind of in a hall, and in the hall, you know, it's not really blocked off, but there's kind of like a table there. You know, you have like, you know, if you're like in the corporate world, you have like a regular hallway, but sometimes in a hallway they'll throw like some chairs and tables and things of that nature. before you get to kind of the office buildings. So you are the main offices in different rooms. So it gives you a chance to kind of like sit down, relax without being in an actual office. So I'm there, and it seemed as though like I'm doing like my final paperwork with her, and all of a sudden there's black folks coming on in, and they're dressed up, like they're going to the gym, getting ready to work out. They're in their PT gear, civilian PT gear, and they said, hey, Cope, that's what they used to say. Hey, you gonna go to the gym? You gonna hoop with us? And I'm like, oh, I'm with my wife. We're getting ready to get this stuff taken care of, and I'll see what I can do, how my timing is. And so they're in this dream. It's so weird. It's weird, but they're happy go lucky, and it's like they're just kind of jumping around, like getting themselves pumped up and excited. They're like they're literally jumping on ceilings. They're kind of doing like push-ups on like the little. I thought it was interesting because there was no bars, but it was like man was doing Ninja Warrior type stuff with the little ceiling, rafters, those ceiling tiles, and you kind of have the rafters in them. And they're getting pumped up because they're going to the gym, and that's what I used to do, back in my days that I'd be playing, every day, hooping every day, and so that was kind of that was hyping me up a little bit. I said, okay. And I said, okay, well, I'm with my spouse. Let me get this paperwork signed, and we'll be on out the door. And it was interesting because it was like, my spouse and I was like a very, conciliatory manner. It's like, all the problems and stuff that we had was going away. But as it was going away, it was interesting because it was supposed to be like it started to get crowded, and it started to look at her, in terms of like, why is she doing what she's doing? Because, as we had gotten what we needed to receive, we had left. And when we had left, we're trying to go through the crowd, and the crowd was really a lot of, it was the white folks with their, the military uniforms on with, their blouses off, and then they're kind of also like looking at me like, aren't you going to report? And I said, well, no, I've just signed my stuff. I'm getting ready. We're going to get ready. We're going to walk on out, because we don't need to, and that's what I was like, I don't really need to. I'm just kind of taking care of some formalities, and so as I'm kind of going along, they're giving me my gear, my combat gear. I get my little rifle issued to me somewhere. I have that in my hands. I'm walking on out, and I tell her, I said, okay, I'm going to meet you at the car, because you're parked on over there, and we're kind of, going out of this, 2-story building, almost like Connex boxes. If you've been deployed overseas, you kind of know what that looks like, and so it's like I'm on Bragg, but it's gray and like dusty and things of that nature. But there's still trees and stuff around. And as I'm going on out, the car is parked across the street, but across the street there's like a 6-lane road, and then that 6-lane road, all 3 of the lanes going towards a direction. I'm going on the opposite of it. So I see everybody kind of, in the traffic, like it is, during when people are getting on base, but this was actually on base. So it was kind of weird because everybody was just, stuck in a traffic jam on base, and usually if that happens, there's always like a high level, like a general or something that's doing a movement, and they'll shut down roads and things of that nature, to allow them to get on base without any issues, to wherever. And so as I'm on out there, I'm kind of sludging around because there was a lot of mud and muck and everything, but it was also, like, deserty slash, with the pines. If you've ever been in North Carolina, you have the pines and stuff there, but it was just different. And so, I'm kind of going along, and there was a few people kind of walking in my direction, that I'm walking, against the traffic, and those folks that are that the side of the road that doesn't have the traffic, see one or two people. And so I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, okay, well, I'm getting ready to get up and get on out of here. And that was kind of my dream, that as I was walking and I kind of stepped off the curb, I slipped and I'm kind of in the sludge. And then, as I continue to walk, I strapped my rifle over me, and then like the strap kind of it hit my cover, and my cover fell off, and then I had to go back and grab the cover. So there was a whole bunch of like missteps and miscues to what was happening to me as I'm getting ready to leave, because I'm ultimately gonna catch up with my spouse, because she's already at the car, waiting for me, and we're getting ready to get off the base. So that was it was very interesting of that dream and that dynamic, because a lot of the black folks that were there, they were just doing whatever they were doing, and all the other white folks that were there, they were nervous and they were scared and they were looking at us, and it was like, okay, well, what are you doing? What's going on with everything? And so I don't know how that dream really tied into this message, because the message wasn't for really us, because it was really for them. Because you have to understand, so I believe what the Most High was telling me, this is kind of the environment that we have in this nation. And I've been hearing that from the tones that I've had in my personal interactions. And I'm sure you all have had in your personal interactions too. And the reason that we're seeing this, it's not because, we're certainly winning. And that's what it kind of feels like to them, and I've had that voiced, concerning my channel, and this thing has been picking on up, because it's not necessarily that I have like the best content. For me, I'm just thinking I really don't have the greatest content. I just sit on in here and I'll talk to you about really my problems, but it's not my problems. It's really the trials that we're all facing as a people. And see, that's the issue that a lot of folks don't really understand. This thing and what we're facing as a people is that we as a people are going through the trial. We're going through the hardship. We're going through the heartache. We're going through the pain. But we're not letting that get to us, because we've never let that get to us for the 400 years that we've been here. We've always continued to do something that has hyped us on up or helped us to hype ourselves up. And if that's not pressing in and praising the Most High, then it's usually something. It's usually something. We always go through something, and I was explaining that to my son and my dad yesterday. Every 100 years, we always go through something. 100 years ago, they had the Red Summer, and that came off the heels of what? The Spanish influenza. But now, all of a sudden, you have the Spanish influenza, version. You have and the Red Summer version, and everything that America has had in terms of calamities is now unfolding all at the same time, all at the same measure, all at the same rate. And so I'm not going to belabor the point in this, but when I was thinking about that, the Most High had told me. He said, think about Rehoboam. Okay, I said, okay, Father, why? All right, that's interesting. Whenever you kind of get that, when the Most High puts a thought in your mind, I always question. I'm like, okay, Father, is this really from you? What's going on here? Excuse me. Why do I need to think about Rehoboam? And so the Most High will say, okay, well, let's. I've given you this dream, but now I'm going to give you this interpretation for it. And I'm like, all right, well, I will see. And it always sounds to me, something strange. It's like, okay, really? I don't know. Uh, and 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 what he will say, and the reason that he'll say it is there's something that is in the contemporary that we really do have to address. And in our community, we have right now, and like I've always said, look, this channel was made to reach out to everyone, whether but the defining thing is reaching out to the Gentiles that's covered under the blood of Yahusha. And yes, I go off of Gentiles as in Japheth and the Isles of Japheth under Genesis 10:3. That's how my definition of Gentiles is. So if you're there in the chat saying, well, this is what I think, this is how I think. No. I don't think like that. I look at the word, and that word is a prescription for my thought process. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. I don't add anything to this word, because this word in its entirety is the truth. And this truth is happening right now. And so, as I was thinking about the dream, I'm still going through a lot of things in my life. I'm going through a lot of issues in my life. But I'm not letting that slow me down, because I know that I serve an awesome Father. I know that with my troubles, He's bigger than my troubles. And so when I woke up, I had some business to take care of, and it seemed as though those troubles were getting ready just to swallow me up. And then I had to think about this, and it took me a while. This is why I was a little late. It took me a while, and I had to say, hold up. My God, my Elohim is bigger than any bit of trouble that I may have. I said, he's bigger than my relationships. He's bigger than my family issues. He's bigger than all that. And I know the reason that I'm going through my family issues is because I've decided to serve him. Thank you, Takia Woodward. Hallelujah. And so, when I looked at that, I said, oh man, I'm looking at everything in this carnal. I'm looking at this, and I said, I'm looking at all these troubles mounting up, because here's the thing. I'm not the only one looking at all my troubles mounting up. We are looking at all of our troubles mounting up. There's just different venues of how that trouble looks like. We have family with troubles in the UK. We have families with trouble in Africa. We have families in trouble in Europe and in Germany and in Italy right now. See, when this thing was going down, it wasn't going to go down just in America. It wasn't going to go down in their one corner of the world. No, because we were spread out to the four corners of this planet or plane or whatever you want to call it. It's the four corners of it. That's what we're spread on out to. Because why? Because we would all have to go through something to get to where the Most High needs us to be. Because when we have those struggles being active, we're not looking at them to rescue us. We're looking at the Most High. And so, I got kind of tripped out, and I said, oh, I need to do this. I need to figure this out. I need to do this. Because for me, and not having that ability, I'm working, but not having the job that I would have as a normal income. All these feelings and of desperation and despair and all these things were overtaking me. And I said, you want to know what? It's only for a season. And I already know that it's only for a season. And then I'm looking and then I'm realizing, look, there ain't no jobs on out here because of how this thing is shaping up. Nothing really ever recovered. And I'm just sitting in the seat, but the Most High still has me and my family. So now I had to, and I just said, I said, Father, I said, I'm not going to fear. I'm not going to fear. I said, because Father, you are bigger than this circumstance. You are bigger than this trial, because this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the end. Plain and simple, family. How do I break that down? I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for anybody. Because you want to know why? Because I walk and I talk in Yahusha HaMashiach. Look, my faith is through him. That's my salvation. I already know my salvation. He's delivered when I was, in the church, quote unquote, and he's delivered when I've been walking in the truth. Nothing's ever changed. Do you hear me, family? Nothing has ever changed. The only thing that we've changed is just that instead of the Black, the African American, no, there's actually an ethnicity that's assigned to us. That's it. And so, that ethnicity is what has scared the population, because now they are reacting off of it. And if you really see the undercurrents of what's happening in this nation, they will tell you. They will tell you they are scared because why? Because all of a sudden, after 400 years, we're going back to who we were. We're going back. We're coming to a mind that we had. Trust me, as a people, this whole thing of our identity wasn't just an overnight thing. It wasn't just very popularized. It wasn't very. It wasn't well known, because you also had a lot of communication and technological disadvantages. Do you hear what I'm saying? When I was doing and going through my little project for my family, seeing that back in the 1820s, they couldn't read, they couldn't write. And that happened up until about the 1870s, 1880s. That's when they were able to kind of read just a little bit, but they weren't very formally educated. But you want to know what was happening? They still understood who they were, because there was stories being passed down. Now, whether or not they were being passed down to us as a generation, as a family, remember that this connection was stronger in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when they were trying to systemically separate the family. Because when you were able to systemically separate the family, then guess what? A lot of these stories weren't able to be shared. Yes, family, and I'm going through that with my little project. These stories weren't able to be shared. These stories weren't able to be distributed. So we literally had about a full 30 to 40-year gap in generational knowledge of our oratory history from our elders, that I would say, yeah, we already knew this. This was something that we were already talking about. We already understood this. This is y'all are slow. If that's what our elders would say to us, if that's what our great grandparents and great grandparents, they would say, yeah, we already knew about this. We already understood this. This was that appeal with the Marcus Garveys. This was how they understood things. With Nat Turner, they knew this. But because of how these systemic partitions were done and put in place to cut off that knowledge. See, when we had to be cut off, we had to be cut off all the way. And we were cut off for about a generation, all the way. And it's very interesting that as we had begun to really understand this, it's interesting how there were a few of us in our families that knew about this. You had some great grandparents that knew about this. You had some uncles and aunts that knew about this. Some grandparents, they knew about this, but for them, it was, okay, it's no profit to us, because look at the time. Even if we knew, even if we know, we still know we're here for 400 years. So what does that profit mean? Okay, well, it's kind of the quote unquote, the family thing, quote unquote. So there was no value add in terms of knowing who you are, because at that time it didn't really warrant it. It was just, okay, well, that's good. And that could do what? That can make you, you can just take the information and say, all right, well, thank you, hallelujah, and I want to keep on moving. Or you take the information and you kind of go crazy with the information, because that's what we have done in the past when we do have that information. When we do think in the carnal, we're going to operate in the carnal. And when we operate in the carnal, guess what? We become an astonishment even more so. We do. And it's like, wow, like, where are these folks coming? What is happening? What's going on? Why? And so that brought me to think about Rehoboam. And Rehoboam was the king of Israel. He was actually the last king of Israel before Israel had split. And this is 1 Kings chapter 12. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. Okay, do you hear this? All Israel came to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of the king Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt, they sent and called him. They said, look, it's going to be some trouble. And I'm gonna kind of go on into this lesson so you can kind of understand how things were moving and those dynamics. That they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam. Do you see this? So Jeroboam actually spoke to Rehoboam, and they were telling him, look, they spake unto Rehoboam, saying, thy father made our yoke grievous. Now, therefore, make thou the grievous service of thy father and his heavy yoke, which he put upon us, lighter. And we will serve thee. Okay, family, listen. Listen, family. If for those who have ears, let them hear. For those who have spiritual ears, let them hear. And he said unto them, depart yet for 3 days, then come again to me. And the people departed. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, and said, how do ye advise that I may answer this people? So he went the right way. So there was a spirit on him that went to wise counsel. Okay, and he went and he asked wise counsel. Okay, my father was one of the wisest men, so let me go on into here and find out how to deal with it. Okay, let me just explain this thing to you real quick. Well, all right. Before I do that, I'm gonna finish reading this. I'm gonna finish reading this. In verse 7, and they spake unto him, saying, if thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and wilt serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. Do you hear that? 1 Kings 12 and 7. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him. And he said unto them, what counsel give ye that we may answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, may the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter. And the young men that were grown up with him spake and said unto him, thou shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it lighter unto thus. Thou shalt say unto them, look, he said, don't even look, if they're asking about making their yoke lighter, don't even respond with that. Respond like this. My little finger shall be thicker than my father's lines. And now, whereas my father did lay you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father hath chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wow. And you can read the rest of the chapter. So I read that unto 1 Kings 12, 1 to 11. And so now, family, I want you to get that context in your mind. Get that context in your mind and think about this awakening. All right, family, think about this awakening. Are we awakened to make the burden heavier? Or are we awakening to make the burden lighter? You know, when you look at the context of our awakening, you see it in full sight in terms of you have a decision. Israel has a decision to make. That was actually going to be what I was shooting for in my message before things had happened. Because I look at this now here and now in the present. We're getting ready to get up on out of captivity. You know, you see it. It's plain as day. Because why? We're seeing everything that was prophesied with Second Esdras, everything that was prophesied with Jeremiah and Isaiah and Obadiah and Joel, everything that we see is happening. And do you understand? The Most High is so gracious. He starts to tell you, okay, you're now getting out of this season because you understand how fashion designers do it. Fashion designers design things a season or two ahead so they can start getting those concepts and fashion designs to the warehouses so they can get those produced so they're out in time for the fall, right? If you ever look at those old fashion shows, I'd always wonder, like, why do they do those old fashion shows? They'll have summer outfits in the dead of winter. It's like, wouldn't that be cold? Aren't they going to catch a draft, get sick? But you have to understand, no, that's what they're doing. They're previewing. They're modeling what they're going to design and put out on the street. And obviously, the more that's liked is the more that's going to be outside of circulation. Those are going to be, their high-end products, and those that are liked in the general, population. That's going to be the designer products that you'll have in your Macy's or your Saks and things of that nature. And so I'd always wonder that. And I said, oh, that's right. Because it gives them enough time to understand and to develop and to produce and to ship so that those new fashions and styles are there in time for the season. And then you see on the commercial, shop the season's hottest fashions and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, okay. But they're showing you how those fashions were developed, 6 or 7 months ago. And so when the Most High had kind of given me this message, when Father Yah had given me this message, he said, look, now we're in a decision cycle of, are we going to be a Rehoboam? Do you hear me, family? Let me repeat that, family, because I'm starting to come on in here. The Holy Spirit done woke me on up. I started off slow, but the Holy Spirit done woke me on up. Are we going to be a Rehoboam? Are we going to look at the heavy yoke that was assigned to us? And then are we going to put that yoke on the stranger? Remember, this was what they had to ask themselves this and ask. Do we need to put this yoke? Do we need to get this yoke heavy? Do we need to have this thing heavy on them? Do we need to, expose them to all this stuff? And they simply put, look, as long as they follow the commandments of Christ, of Yahushua, what? To love your neighbor as yourself, and to love our God with all our might and all our soul and all our strength, then we don't need to tarry them with anything else. Because you want to know why? Because then you start to get a backlash in their spiritual, because it's something that's not spiritually resonating with them. Because we have had a law and a covenant for our people that doesn't spiritually resonate with them. See, in this awakening, not a lot of stuff was spiritually resonating with them. When we awakened, it was, okay, you awakened, okay, great. But what does that mean? And here's the thing, honestly, in our ignorance and in our carnality, because see, when we awoken, listen, I'm telling you, family, when we awoken, you awoke somebody that had been asleep for 400 years. Let me just be honest with you, family. How many folks, if you've been asleep for 400 years, how many folks would be able to make it sleeping on a bed for 400 years? You got to understand where you're going to be laid out at. Think about George Floyd, family. Let's think about this. When you die, and now get George Floyd into your mind with this imagery. When you die, you evacuate what's in your insides. When you die, everything that was the crap and the bowels gets evacuated. And really, you are laying in your own feces, in your own urine. That's what happens when you die on a battlefield. That's what happens when they have to clean you up and get you shipped on out and get you processed. If you've ever known anything about mortuary affairs, they have to stuff you on up to get you able to be transported so those mortuaries in the United States can go ahead and take care of your body and process your body. So you're not a detestable, funky mess at your wake, at your funeral. So you have to understand, family, when we woke up in 400 years of filth. We woke up in 400 years of urine and feces that had been evacuated because we were dead. And see, when we're doing that, we're not understanding we have spiritual filth all around us. We have spiritual feces all around us that we haven't cleaned on up. So even though we may know who we are, the only thing that was coming out of us was just junk. Because you got to remember, when you get piled in stuff, you start breathing the stuff, and it's going to take you a little bit to get that out of you. You have to get that thing out of your mouth. You have to get your lungs to respond. You have to have some sort of a coughing process or mechanism. So all that stuff, just like when you're drowning, it takes a little bit for your lungs to clear. It takes a little bit for your trachea to get all that crap out of you. So now you can be able to breathe what the Most High is giving you. Now you're going to be able to talk, because how are you going to talk when you still have all that crap in your mouth? So listen, don't look at me like I came on out out of the grave perfect. I was the chief of them. And you know, it's funny because every single time I talk to my significant other, my loved one, and she tells me like, "Look, you messed up," because I came to her in a carnal approach. I really did. Oh yeah, you're gonna be this, and even though I didn't say it, that's what was approached, because it wasn't said in love. You understand, family? When you don't have things said in love, they can't respond to it. This is why people don't like Paul. Paul, oh my gosh, Paul was just a Gentile, and he was a masquerading Gentile that was claimed to be an Israelite. No. Listen, Paul was a tent maker. Paul was a businessman that was also learned, a very learned theologian at that time. Thank you, Larry Cornell Bryce. Hallelujah. But you want to know what Paul grew up? Paul said it. He said, "Look, I grew up around Gentiles." I grew up around Gentiles. Where are you from, Paul? Look, I'm from Damascus. What was he going to? He was going to Damascus. Because what's Damascus? His stomping ground. Why was he there? In Jerusalem. He's at the university getting some knowledge and learning and stuff like that. You know, what do we always do when you're a professional or anything that's professional? You have to go through every so often and do what? Recertify. right? You have to always recertify. And at that time, they didn't have any online stuff. You needed to get your behind to that chief synagogue there in Jerusalem and get your little, notification papyrus going on. And that was Paul. Hey, look, do you all hear about these folks that are the way? And and they're saying that Christ has risen and that Yahusha had died for our sins and that we're covered under the blood and they're trying to do away with these laws and everything else. Y'all heard about this mess? Yeah, we heard about it. Well, we got to do something. And then lo and behold, what? There's an opportunity. There's Stephen. Oh man, this dude is talking some blasphemy. Yeah, I've been heard enough. Yeah, give me my letter. Give me my letter. We got to take care of this thing. We got to do some blasting. We got to do some troll blasting. That was Paul. Paul was a troll blaster at that time. If I can do it, if I can give it to you in modern in the modern concepts. And so as he had gotten the authority, the carnal authority to do so, he went on out and he went back to Damascus, his stomping grounds. Okay, let me go ahead and get this thing knocked out. And then what happened? He met Christ on the way. Says Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Who are you? What is this? Because see, at that time, all they knew was if you weren't in accordance to Moses, you weren't anything. Yeah, you may have had Jeremiah, but see, even for Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Isaiah, for them, it really didn't amount to much. They knew of them, but it didn't quite compute because, well, I'm not completely cut off from the land. So it's nice to know because in physical Babylon, they gave us something. But they weren't really understanding that spiritual Babylon was still yet to come. So what Paul grew up with, he grew up with the interactions of the Gentiles. He knew how the Gentiles would walk, talk, eat, live, conversate. But he would say, yeah, but I set myself apart because, listen, I was born a Pharisee, I was, I'll talk with them, I'll interact with them, but, only so often because, that I got my little, my tassels, I got my everything that I need. I'm equipped. And so this is what we were looking at with Paul before he said, no, that's all for dung because this is now what's happening. We're now in a new season. We now need to prepare for what is getting ready to go on. And didn't Paul say that? He said, look, there's going to be folks that's going to take this Christ and do another work. So he's not even the same Christ that we're talking about. And haven't we seen that exemplified just this week? We were talking about it. We were understanding it because you want to know why? We were getting ready for that season to be here. We were modeling everything for this season to arrive. We were showing, we were doing the little, and data scientists, if you're a data scientist or a data analyst or some sort of strategist, you take that information and you model, they call it modeling the information. So now you have kind of a scale in terms of what you see, how things are going to get to based off of predictive analysis. That way you can start to associate any type of trend lines that would begin to show you if there's a pattern, what that pattern is going to look like, and how to adjust for that pattern. And so here we are. We get taken outside of the pattern. Wake up. Let me tap you. Wake up. And we're looking at this like, oh man, we're touching ourselves, touching our face. Is this even real? Am I the people? And we got so associated with, oh man, we're the people. Oh yeah, you see Joel, you see Micah, you see all this stuff. We became a carnal pariah. And Paul knew this. He said, look, you can't come up to them. You may have truth, but if you ain't coming to them in the spirit, you're done. You're absolutely done. And not only are you absolutely done, they're absolutely done. They got exposed to the wrong thing because guess what? You still had crap in your mouth. And that crap was still in your heart. So when you're still trying to understand and come to yourself, because listen, we had to go through physical therapy, spiritual physical therapy. You know, you came on up. Listen to me. I'm convicting myself, family, and I'm letting you all know. I came to my spouse with spiritual halitosis, with all sorts of feces and urine on my breath, like a dog. And I said, yeah, you know, if you're not getting this, this is where you're going to end up. It's going to be slavery. It's going to be servitude. Now, all she heard was slavery, servitude, which is a white person's worst nightmares. Do you understand that's the reason why they're literally fighting? Because they have it in their minds that they're going to be slaves to China. I'm not going to be slaves to China, and I'm not going to pay reparations. That's why they're fighting. They have literally lost their minds. That's what's on their minds. And see, no matter how much you try to explain it to them, if you come through with carnality, if you come through in that flesh, oh, no. Mm-mm. No, you've already lost them. Well, don't you think you could have presented it in a little bit of a nicer format? Yeah. I always kick myself the whole time because that's the only thing that she can think of. Well, who cares if they're amassing to overthrow this government? Who cares if all these folks are going to have uprisings in all 50 states? Well, don't you think you could have approached me in a little bit of a better format? You know, don't you think you would have said, hey, you know, this could have been, or this is what we have, and this is what I'm seeing. Look, the Most High awoke me. I don't know why he awoke me, but he was showing me this was up. This was how it was going. And there are scriptures to back this on up. And there's literature that's actually backing this on up. And with all this stuff, I'm just trying to tell you that we're getting into a season of judgment. And I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong. But I know that this is what the Holy Spirit is convicting me. And this is how he's convicted me. I don't care if you want to call yourself an Israelite or a Christian or whomever, but this is what's happening. Do you understand? And I'm going to tell you, the UA folks are just debating titles. We're all born again. We're all under the blood of Yahusha, Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm an Israelite by blood. Because why? Because we found that out. It's already on out there. It was just that it was hidden. Wait a second. I fixed that. I'm going to change that nonfiction historical book and I'm going to put it in fiction. Problem solved. What? Now you better talk to a couple of those printing presses. But this is where we're at, family. And see the Most High is a gracious and forgiving Father for everyone. He knew that we were going to mess on up. He knew that we were going to make mistakes. He absolutely did know that. He knew that we would trip over ourselves. Because you want to know why? Because he knows that we're Israel. And what does Israel do? We always trip over ourselves, no matter what. Don't you always go like, oh man, I wish I had that second chance. I wish I had this. Oh, I should have done it better. Oh, and then it's like, oh, Father, thank you for the second chance. Thank you that you did this. I want to do it better. And I'm going to do it because he knows that's how we are. We always have these second chances and these opportunities that come from nowhere. It's crazy. We just think about all the things that's happened in your life that it's like, oh, that door was closed. Oh, I'm never going to happen. Oh, it's I messed up. I had my shot and that's that. And then all of a sudden, something comes from the middle of nowhere, and it's just like, yeah, sorry, we had an error, or something had happened, or this had happened, and that's when you see the Most High get involved, because it's not for our benefit; it's for Him. And see, I look at this, and I was taking this thing to the extreme, and I said, "Oh, Father," I said, "I don't know, Lord." I said, "Father, I don't." I said, "I messed up," and I know I'm not. I know I messed up, and she knows I messed up. She knows I messed up. She always puts that, "Hey, you messed up. You messed up. You messed up bad." And I always have to hit myself, and I don't hit myself, but I mean, I spiritually, feel that hit in the gut, and it's like, oh Lord, I did. Father, I did mess up bad. I said, Father, how am I going to get this other chance? How am I going to make this thing work? And family, here it is. That second chance is coming very soon. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? Do you hear what I'm telling you, family? I was going to come on this message and I was going to say, look, don't get too involved in this. Don't put your eggs in one basket. Don't think, this is this and that is this. Let's proceed with caution. Let's kind of see what's happening. Let's kind of, because it could just be a big old farce, and it could. But family, I tell you, look, when you start seeing the carnal matters taking place, you already know that you're outside of the spiritual. That thing that's taking place in the carnal has already been birthed from a spiritual. So it's here, family. You saw I don't know if you all had checked out my Facebook on Covenant Awakenings. You've seen the Reverend doing that. And he just exemplified one of thousands of pastors throughout the country that was echoing what Trump had said. And if you hadn't noticed, Trump is not backing down. This is why they're getting ready to try and do an impeachment. Because they know. Family, what we saw last Wednesday, literally last week, 7 days ago, you literally saw a nation that was getting ready to fall. But you have to understand, Ezekiel 35 is a perfect descriptor. And I had gone on over it earlier this week. Because remember, as they think it's a loss, as they think, oh, we're going to get this thing on back. No, it's not. There's always a push before the big push. That's just how it goes. Okay, if the push happens, then it gets reinforced. Excuse me. Excuse me. If the big push doesn't happen, then guess what? Now we're going to reinforce, and then we're going to push even harder. Because why? Because they're going to reinforce. Don't we see that happening right now? Don't we see that going on? Yeah. Trump is bad boy for life. That's exactly what it is. But the problem that we're seeing is, what are we going to be doing? How are we going to be taking this in? Look, they know what's happening. They understand what's happening. They don't need to have the play-by-play and touchdown, here we go. Let's start. We got to start to get out of our carnal and start to understand the spiritual, because that spiritual apparatus is really saying, look, this is their last opportunity, their last shot. Not only theirs, but also ours. Let's not build this kingdom like Rehoboam. Let's not start off where we say, look, that thing was just a pinky. We're going to look at something that's like my waist. No. And that's where we need to be, that nation that the Most High had asked us to be, that we had said, yeah, we're going to do it. Remember, that was what our ancestors put on us. And as much as we don't like what covenants our ancestors had put, it doesn't matter. We're here. Nobody can take a time machine, go over to Mount Sinai, talk about, I need you to do a quick DNA test because I need to find the ancestor's neck I'm getting ready to wrangle. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, that's not going to happen. Because see, we were called to be that holy nation, because you want to know why? Because we've been through some mess. We're going through some mess. And now we're starting to see we're about to get out of this mess. And now we're in another season. But now, as we've been able to have plenty of practice with this thing, in terms of being able to speak without having the urine and feces smell, now that we've had some spiritual Listerine with some spiritual Colgate or Crest, using your spiritual Oral-B pro, getting it all down in your mouth, getting the gargle, getting everything, getting the stench out. Because that stench of carnality is something that they are drawn to in the negative. Oh, no, no, oh, no, no, I'm trying to tell you, look, this is what's happened. Oh, no, no, now you're hurting my breath. Oh, you ever have somebody's breath stink so bad that they literally give you a headache? Oh, you're hurting. Oh, no, my eyes are hurting. No, sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, my eyes are starting to water. Man, your breath stinks so much, my eyes are watering. Oh, your breath stinks so much that I'm coughing on your breath. Oh, man, oh, your breath is so bad, my ears are starting to ache. Ah, I can't even hear you. Ah. We're laughing, but this is it's absolutely true. Yeah, that's the dragon breath. Because that thing, you have to kick that thing with some Bruce Lee. Okay. But we're laughing, but that's absolutely true. So we had that spiritual dragon breath on us, trying to talk to people on the corners, everywhere that you want to be. Look, it doesn't matter if you have the posters or not. You have the spiritual dragon breath, and they'll respond to you in kind. Because they're going to look at you like, okay, I see what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but you're not doing it. You're not saying it in a manner that I can relate to. Well, you don't need to relate because you're going to be going into captivity, and our captivity is going to end, and your captivity is going to begin, and it's going to be worse. Slow down, Rehoboam. Slow down, Rehoboam. Because you do have a lot of the scriptures that are out there about us, Israel, Judah, speaking kindly to the nations, to the Gentiles. Why is that? Because there's a couple of us that will say, oh, you know what? We're not going to do that mistake. We're not going to make the same mistake. We're not going to go to someone or something that's inexperienced. We're not going to have counsel or rely on counsel that we know, that we're familiar with, that we've grown up with, to give us unwise counsel. Let me go back to the counsels of my forefathers. Let me go back to the counsel of Yahusha or Yahusha, Jesus Christ. Let me go back into his counsel. Look, I knew who I was because of him. Do I just throw that all away? No. Let me go back in. Okay, Father, I thank you through your son, Yahusha, that you have given me the ability to understand who I am, because it was by your spirit. So, Father, help me to handle this thing so I can start to explain this to your people and to those that are called by your name. Because yes, you do have the Gentiles on out there. Okay, yeah, I know. Think about Lucas from Seventh Day Trumpets. Think about that. Think about Dana Stevens. Think about Robert Callahan. Think about that. There's them and so much more. I see them all on YouTube. I see them all on Facebook. They understand it. I would just like to know who was the one that didn't do the Rehoboam and that went to him in loving kindness and said, listen, you may not like this, but this is what's happening. But ultimately, it's for his glory. And when it's for his glory, guess what? You partake also. If you're invited to the wedding, aren't you able to partake in the wedding food too? Aren't you able to partake in the festivities too? I've never been to a wedding where they don't even give the guest any food. No, that doesn't happen. No, they make sure, okay, you're on the list. I got you. You're sitting at this table. We got this bouquet, this banquet. What do? They give you an esteem. They give you what? The seating chart. They give you the arrangements. They put the little name tags on. You can sit here, you sit here. The guest, because that's an esteem. It's an honor to be invited. Oh man, I get a chance to be here. I'm going to be eating the food because you know what? They're going to have the best catering. They're going to have the best of everything. And this is what we're seeing. Now the labor was here. And now those labors are being shown. And you understand, family, the whole thing, I kind of get I get a kick out of this. We shouldn't laugh, but I do. The whole point of that little QAnon craziness or nonsense was to be another distraction piece in our awakening. Imagine we had already awakened and we were awakening, and now all this stuff comes on out with QAnon and everything else. See, I didn't even know much about QAnon until like 2018 timeframe, 2017, 2018 timeframe. And I was already like hip to that notion of, there's always a counterbalance. There's always a counterweight. As we were going to awaken, and they're trying to use that whole, woke, because we were saying it, like we had awakened. We're not awoke. We are just awakened to who we were. We're not going to the conspiracy theories. We're going to the libraries. We're going to the library books. We're going to the libraries in different countries. We're looking at their libraries online. And that's where we were having our attention. We didn't care about this deep state. For what? Who cares? Oh, it's a deep state conspiracy. Okay, conspiracy of what? A white supremacist fighting against another white supremacist. And but it's a deep state conspiracy. No, the only conspiracy is you all had to have a distraction piece. And you understand what happened, family? Do you understand what happened, family? They are literally fighting as a result of them not wanting to listen to what we were saying. Can let that process in your minds. No, I'm not listening. I'm not listening. No, but I'll listen to this craziness. They went for the trap. They sprung the trap on their own selves. Isn't that crazy how the Most High operates? I'm just going to refuse this truth and I'm going to go straight into destruction. You can never have scripted anything like this. Because you got to remember, see, when the Most High is involved in things, his planning is so much on a higher level, it's unfathomable. So as we are seeing things develop, and as we are seeing things get together, you realize all this conspiracy, crazy nonsense that they're going through in their communities that's led them to this was because this was the fruits. They're now being set on sour grapes. Their teeth are now set on edge because they wanted to go through and be rebellion and be in rebellion. And if you've noticed any of our teachings and things of that nature, you know, they would like to say, well, you know, that's racism and it's racist. Well, if you would think about this, that's kind of racist to keep our information from us. That's kind of racist to knowingly ensure that we couldn't read, so we couldn't research our information. Don't you think? See, they won't acknowledge that. And I'm not going to go through and you know and knock them for that. Because honestly, in their minds, they're just going to go with what they know. I don't need to investigate anything. I'm just going to go with what I know, with what who tells me, and I'm good. And see, pleading ignorance I'm shaking my head, family, because all this stuff I remember last week, all this stuff I had this on the video. And I talked about this. Pleading ignorance is something that they could get away with that they were no longer able to get away with. Sorry, family. Sometimes I shake. Sometimes I shake myself. I don't think you realize this. When I'm talking, sometimes it shakes myself. Like, oh, ooh. Ooh. And didn't we say that? Look, they were able to operate under that pleading ignorance card. And I said this. I said, look, there's going to be a time that the Most High takes away that card of I'm pleading ignorance. Have you seen that, family? Well, I'm just going to let them walk on through. I'm pleading ignorance, right? I'm just going to walk away. I'm pleading ignorance. Oh, you can't make this up. And see that blind eye that they were able, quote unquote, blind eye that they were able to operate in for centuries had backfired on them. So this is where we're at, family. This is where we're defying the odds. We have a bigger Elohim than any of our problems. He already has everything in order. He already has everything in his perfect will and in his perfect order, because we're all going through something. We're all going through that walk where we're seeing the sea and we're seeing the cloud and dust from Pharaoh's army coming up. We're seeing it. You want to know the funny thing is, you want to know the funny thing is when you're looking at the scriptures and if you notice what was going on as they were leaving Egypt, they're afraid, Pharaoh's army is going to come, they're going to overtake us. Right? Pharaoh's army is going to come and overtake us. Because why? They had about 100,000 people in Pharaoh's army. And there's 100,000 people to take on roughly 2 million or so. And so what Pharaoh's army was doing, they were just taking their time. Oh yeah, these folks are going to get stopped up at this point right here. Okay, easy. So they're taking their time, and you want to know why you take your time? There's two objectives in taking your time if you are an overwhelming force. And you already know that you're an overwhelming force. Well, the first objective it's a psychological maneuver. And that psychological maneuvering is, look, the more you have to see us coming, the more you understand, your power, your fight, your fortitude starts to wane. Right? It starts to become, you get more shook. You start getting scared. You start to fear. And see, when you've already feared and you already have that fear in you, no matter what that person does, you have already lost the battle because your fear will overtake you. And that army just has to go through the motions. And so the second is to preserve energy and strength. Because see, they knew these people are on the run, they're fleeing because guess what? They done took all the money. So let's just, take our time, bide our time, and we'll get them at a certain point, and we'll get this stuff taken care of. So now we had to understand as we as we were looking at this, you know, this is where we're at right now. It's kind of like, well, we're going to take the time with them. We're going to be slow on these rollouts, and now we're going to speed on up. Have you noticed that they're speeding up the vaccine rollouts real quick? I said that's an indication. Remember, they were trying to slow things on up because why? It was fear. Oh, these black folks know. These black folks know. Tuskegee is on its way. Oh, well, I'm going to slow it on out. And now you're just going to see the count. But now we got to roll them on out. We got to do it now. We got to do it now. Why is it? Have you all noticed this? They're trying to do everything now within the week. Think about that, family. They're telling on themselves. Oh, man. Yeah, exactly. Second Exodus. The Earth's rotation has sped up according to scientists. Why? They're shortening the days, right? Shortening the days. Oh, but this is what they were doing, and they were pulling on out. And I said, look, you got to understand there's a correlation factor. The faster they go, they already kind of knew the faster they could throw themselves potentially into more judgment, into more calamity. And this is why they said, oh, we're going to have warp speed. But all of a sudden, okay, let's slow it down. Because the people at the top that actually know who we are and that are trying to game the system to get away from this judgment, they're trying their best, family. Trust me. They are trying their best to kind of, work on out or stay away from this judgment. But now, see, the time that they thought they had allotted to them, that time is actually over. They, if you ask them, how long do they plan on America being a country? They'll say 1,000 years. They'll say this, they'll say that. They didn't understand it was going to happen right away. And now these folks are fearful if America is going to be America by the end of next week. Do you hear what I'm saying, family? Look, as soon as the black ops start going, oh, we're in panic. We're in disarray. You were in disarray because everybody's going to be wondering what's happening, what's going on. Oh my goodness. This is now the preparation time, family, to get yourselves prepared, to understand that spiritual impact will start being shown. Because guess what? When there's nothing out there to distract you, then now people will listen. Neighbors will be knocking on the door. I'm sorry, but do you know anything? I know they're automatically gonna come to me because I have my little, army tag on my vehicle. Oh, I've seen that you're in the army. I've seen you in your uniform a couple times. Last year. Do you know what's going on? And then I can do my little Jehovah's Witness pamphlet. Oh, look, I'll put a task on out for you for the community. I may have to put that on Hebrew Sphere. I said, y'all need to come on up with like a little 1-page, foldable track. Are you prepared for the second Exodus? How do you prepare for the second Exodus? And they have the sky and everything else, and they're gonna be beamed on up into the clouds. Our second Exodus is gonna be like, look, you have your little suitcase. It's gonna look like a scene out of Cosmic Slop. I'm just gonna tell you, it's gonna look like Cosmic Slop. Well, first of all, If you have a brown paper bag and you know that your ancestors are a slave of descendants, if you can, please print out a family tree. As soon as it says 1823 or you can't find the records anymore, your chances are you're probably a slave of descendants or of African descent. Second, you need to make sure that someone in that family or their immediate family has taken a DNA test. So please ensure that they know their cousins or, family members that can verify that DNA test. Third, never let them out of your sight. The Holy Spirit may wake them on up and they may leave in the middle of the night. And if you haven't checked on them, you're going to be left for your destruction. Oh, man. Yeah, I knew. I was like, oh, I thought somebody was going to have a little track. We have the folks here that love to do a little Microsoft publisher and stuff, Oh, I may have to share that with Brother Dante. Brother Dante, look, you need to task some folks. If Dante says something, man, you have folks just going. And shout out to Brother Christian, because Brother Christian, oh man, that is a historian for the ages right there. He gave him that, and that's what a lot of our gifts are. We have different gifts. Please have at least 20 of those tracks available. Oh, man. You also need to tell your Israelite brethren to not be a Rehoboam. No, you will not be responsible for rubbing his feet or her feet, giving shoulder rubs, back rubs. Oh, man. The sad thing is we do have to put stuff like that on in there. Look, don't be judged along with them because you want to go through some sort of carnality. So yeah, so I'm gonna have to get off this thing with you all because I know as soon as I start to tangent, that's when the Holy Spirit says, "Look, you gotta, Karis, get off. You said what you need to say. It's time to get off." Hallelujah, Susan Givney. Yeah, there will cleave to Israel. And you want to know why the reason they're going to cleave to Israel? I'm going to tell you this plain and simple. It's pure psychology. Can I explain this thing to you? It's pure psychology. People will naturally go to those who are not panicked. Can I explain that to you? People will naturally resonate around people who aren't panicking because they see something that's unusual in the moment. See, in that moment, look, we will be looking at this thing like, okay, yeah, the Most High is moving. All right. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait. What do you mean you're going to sit here and you're going to wait? Don't you want to do this? Aren't you going to try and do that? Aren't you going to try and find out about this? Aren't you going to try and do this? That's going to be their natural instinct. I'm cut off from information, so I need to find the information, because if I don't have the information, I start to panic. And the problem is, no one will have the information, and everybody will be in a panic on all levels. So the people that you thought that were working for you or on your behalf turns out to then be your adversary, because they are now trying to find out, I need resources, and you are a resource, or you have access to resources. This is emergency management 101. And then for those folks that are in emergency management, then they become, it's plain and simple, they become the ones that are the literally adversarial correspondents, which means they don't know what's happening from the top. So they have to go independently. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to snatch your stuff and say, hey, guess what? This is in need of the authority. They don't know what the authority is. This is for the state of Florida. Oh, okay. Well, what are they saying? Don't worry about it. We'll come back and update you. Make sure that you have, enough stuff. And if we need stuff, you have enough. That's how this thing's going to be. Now, the problem is they're going to encounter folks like us, Black folks that are going to be awakened, and they know that this is going to be the problem. Hey, you got to address. We have to stop Black folks, because they're going to start telling people what is actually going on, and then that's going to incite either a panic or something that we don't want to have. And see, that's where we're seeing it. That's what I'm going to tell you. This is how the setup is going to go. You know what's happening? You know what's happening? Hey, listen. We've been saying it. Y'all been on our channels. Y'all been hearing it. You look. Y'all have heard the screaming, and you turn to a blind heart. You got a callous heart because you heard the screaming. But let me explain to you. We're here right now. We're looking at this right now. So this is where we just need to sit by and just pray and ask the Most High to guide us in that time, because those folks are going to go on out. They're going to get out in the streets, and what was Ezekiel 35 saying? Bodies are going to be piled up everywhere. Hey, do not leave. Stay in, hunker down. Understand. Yeah, no, Trump isn't going to usher in the third temple. But I do believe that Trump has been used for this calamity and destruction that we're getting ready to see. That's the only thing I think with Trump. He's getting ready to see that, because there has to be, someone or something in place that the Most High is going to get ready to use. We already know that. We don't need to worry about the mechanisms of who's going to be who. It doesn't matter. The spirit of the Antichrist has been around for 2,000 years. It's the spirit of the Antichrist. And it's going to be around even after we are up and out of the land of our captivity. Because you got to remember, what are they going to do? They're going to try to find out, how do we recoup? It's going to take us a few generations. Why? Because these folks know who they are. And guess what? The whole world knows who they are. So guess what? Now they're going to have to go on another multi-generational campaign for their people. Because you got to remember, the slice of the pie has been taken off the table. They used to have the whole world. Now they're going to contend with the kingdom, the Most High's kingdom, and then their kingdom. So see, now they have to be able to construct within their kingdom, and they're going to have to be a little bit more crafty because they know that we know who we are. And they'll have people within their kingdom knowing who they are or who we are. And so it's going to say, hey, this is going to be an issue. This is going to be a problem. So yeah, family, it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be chaotic, but you already know how this thing is going to work itself on out. We know the scriptures. We know what the scriptures say. As long as we understand what the scriptures say, it doesn't really matter. All the other peripheral stuff, all that other, secondary stuff. The Most High has that figured on out. And yeah, second Exodus, that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be, look, they have to kind of contend. Well, no, you really all aren't the people, and our ancestors had said this, because you got to remember, they're going to be on something different. This little mark of the beast technology that they were trying to introduce, it's not even in its fullness yet. Remember, there's a fullness of time for everything. They had a fullness of the Gentiles. It's the fullness of their time. Now it's going to be the beast kingdom, and it'll be a fullness of its time. And when that beast kingdom tries to mess with us, when we're back in our land, that's when we go to war. That's the war scrolls. And then that's when I believe, this is just me, that's when I believe that's when Christ will be coming back. And then that's when that millennial reign, that's when, eternity starts to go from there. And everlasting from there. Because you have to understand, eschatology is broken. We have to be in our land of unwalled villages. We have to be in our land where the whole world was at rest. And then for them, that's when an evil thought comes upon them. Hey, while they're living good, we're living junky. Well, remember, our forefathers had them. Remember, our forefathers had them in slavery. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's bring them on back. Let's get back to the top. I don't want to be back on the bottom anymore. Let's bring them back to the top. Because you got to remember, at this time, the world is now starting to understand who we are. They know who we are and will know who we are. And I believe with that being said, they're going to start coming on over like, hey, we know. We understand, we want to partake in the land of unwalled villages. What do you have for me to do? That's what the Bible says. That's actually what the scripture said. That's Isaiah 60. Look, they're going to come to our light now and when we're in the land. Yeah, Mr. Original, that already took place. That already took place under Maccabees and Herod. That was second Exodus. We fled to the mountains. We fled into Africa. We fled deeper into Africa. And then for a little bit, then we came on out, and then we went to Europe. Met up with some cousins in them, then came back into Africa. They know our story. They know who we are. The history books know it. The oral history knows it. So here we are, family. This is it. So, family, it is noon. I'm gonna end this live with you all because it's. At first, it was kind of like I'm gonna struggle with this, but you know what? The Most High is good. He always has a ram in the bush. And family, this is where we need to pray and we need to fast. Do a 1-day fast, just a little quick fast. Father, I'm just going to do water. I'm going to do a sun up to sundown. Father, just because this is the time. And when when you allow him to speak to you, he will speak. So, family, with that said, thank you all for supporting this channel. If you've donated, again, family, for me, I'm just going to let you know, I don't know how much longer we're going to have. I really don't. And I'm praying for each and every one of us. And I even pray for the Gentiles. I do. I pray for those that persecute me. Because you want to know what? It's not my judgment. It's not my vengeance that does anything. It's the Most High's. And I pray that they start coming into the truth. It's a hard truth. It's a hard thing. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's just hard. So, family, with that said, Shalom, Salama, Siemi, Shalom. Peace and blessings, Israel.